Lepidoptera. Please welcome Liam O'Brien.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out tonight, everyone. Butterflies always bring out crowds, so we're 90 strong tonight. Georgia and I just took a head count. That's a pretty good turnout. I want to first thank Radhika, my buddy. Since she picked me up, I got the wrong train depot, and she was there lickety-split 10 minutes later. So thank you. You guys are very lucky to have this glorious woman in your team. Okay, so I am here to demystify something that, you know, a Lepidopterus. Everyone say Lepidopterus. Lepidoptera is the study of butterflies and moths. Lepidoptera means scaled wings. So if you were a coleopterist, you would be a beetle expert. That's hard wings. Coleopterist. So I thank you for having me here. I just talked at CNPS Monterey 3 weeks ago, and I'm doing the CNPS World Tour, I like to call it. I'm talking at Yerba Buena in a month on another subject. So, the butterflies of San Francisco. Yes, as it was pointed out in my introduction, this is my old life here, ladies and gentlemen. I appeared for 3 years on Broadway in Les Miserables, which is now a film. I was playing Thénardier, the master of the house. This is Lea Salonga, who won the Tony Award for Miss Saigon, and she was playing Eponine when I played Thénardier. So, welcome to my old world, and you think, how do you get to Lepidoptera to butterflies and a stage actor? So, I was hired to replace a guy in Angels in America at ACT in San Francisco. I did 10 plays with them at the Geary for 10 years in the 80s. And I was staying in the DuBose Triangle and section of San Francisco, and flew into one of those glorious backyards of San Francisco, those little hidden jewels, this creature, Papilio rudilus, the western tiger swallowtail. And I remember going downstairs and I was watching it. It was nectaring and stuff. And then I kind of remember picking up some pens and inks, and because I used to paint and draw when I was a kid. And who knew, 15 years later, that I would be making a pretty good living as a lepidopterist? You know, one of those moments where your whole life turns 180 degrees and you have no idea until you're 15 years down the road. So, tiger swallowtail. Fascinatingly enough, I am now starting a whole new project. This butterfly, well, there's lots to cover here tonight. So what I first want to do to tell you is that tonight, what I really want you guys to take away is the incredible connection between this group of creatures and your first passions, which are native plants, I assume. And I will keep it directed on them, so we won't tell about those ugly stepsisters. They're the non-native plants. But butterflies don't really know the politics of native and non-native. So I'm just going to first ask you all, do you know the two ways a butterfly uses a plant? Nectar source and host plant. I'm going to make it. I'm going to walk you through and hold your hand. You don't have to have a PhD in this one. So, does anyone know what a host plant is?
Caterpillars.
Good. Right. So this is the fortune cookie you're all going to take home tonight. It is the plant or family of plants, and it's so great. I'm talking to CNPS people. I don't have to explain it. That she lays her eggs on. The plant or the family of plants that she needs to lay her eggs on. Those are host plants. We've already seen one at the Arctic blue, only the Arctic blue doesn't fly in the Bay Area. Used to fly in Point Reyes, but it's gone now. Anyway, so nectar sources, which we can get into a little bit later, are a whole other subject. Butterflies are generalists when it comes to nectaring. We all love it when a butterfly comes into our garden and it goes from the flowers and stuff. They are opportunistic. They don't know the difference between a toyon and a dandelion. And it has more to do with mouth size. Larger butterflies use larger flowers, like a cardoon or a thistle, as a swallowtail sits on it. It needs sort of a platform. Smaller butterflies will use smaller flowers. It has to do with the mouth size, not the abundance of diversity in your yard. So they're a generalist, opportunistic. But they're very specific, and this is the thing you'll be taking home tonight, about the things that you can put in your garden. And then what's really a breath of fresh air about this talk, I just really want to tell you, is that San Francisco, when I first moved there, in full disclosure, when this passion took over to me, I collected. I want to make that very clear to me, and we can have a talk about that later on. But because I paint and illustrate, I wanted to do it from the specimens, and I sort of lived in my own spin zone with this. And I think it's a little sad that it's kind of a given that most people who go into entomology, male or female, begin with a butterfly collection. And we've, this Norman Rockwell sort of Voltairean ideal, it's become so politically un-PC. When's the last time you ever saw a child running around with a butterfly net? It's a little sad, and are there groups of butterflies that should not be collected? Of course, but it is a known fact that most people who go into entomology start with butterflies. And let me tell you something, nobody's going to get a PhD with a pair of binoculars in entomology. Just doesn't happen. It's a nice idea, but so in full disclosure, I wanted to say that. And there's still things, I don't carry the net too often anymore, but there are still moments where we can all add to what's going on out there. Now, I also like to point this picture out because this is Hastings Reserve, and it's not always an instrument of death, the net. It really is a field tool, and right here, that's not a joke, the deer flies were wicked that day, and my Dr. Jerry Powell, a light brown apple moth fan, we were surveying there in Hastings down in Carmel Valley, and oh yeah, I'm like, okay, he turned around and took this picture because you are insane. So, after this mania took over to me, I joined the Lepidopterist Society, and a glorious thing about the Lepidopterist Society, one of the founding people who started it was Vladimir Nabokov, the famous Russian novelist. Fascinating enough, but most people realize that as well as what a great novelist he was the most famous lepidopterist who ever lived, and collected many butterflies around the Grand Canyon. All of that traveling through in the novel Lolita, where he's stopping at motels and stuff like that, he and his wife were traveling around collecting butterflies. That's why his writing of America is so incredible, because he was a lepidopterist. Anyway, it's a fascinating little story. And so I started painting and drawing, and I keep a pretty wicked, intense field journal. And my field journal started to get some attention. Somebody looked over my shoulder and went, wow. This is in my first passion were the Hemiluca moths, which use a lot of our ceanothus and buckthorn as the host. And so they're glorious moths this was at Mono County line. Anyway, I kind of like to go in and paint a place and then put the creatures into it. It's sort of the reverse of a field guide. I think they do this with sheets of stamps too now. But so that's what I did, and my work started to get a lot of attention. This is at Moth Light in Arizona. I hope before you all pass this earth, you will sit at a Moth Light along the border in Nogales, because it will blow your mind what comes in. It's really a whole other world. But I'm taking you through the baby steps of butterflies tonight. Let me just put it into perspective for you folks. 750 butterflies in the United States, approximately 300,000 moths. So, in general, Lepidoptera, our species likes pretty things, and we're attracted to these pretty day-flying things called butterflies. But in the grand scheme of things, butterflies are just a small niche of the order of Lepidoptera that work the day shift. The real story are the moths on every one of your flowers when you're asleep in the backyard. I mean, we like the pretty guys in the day, but the big story are the LBMs, the little brown moths, that not so showy, not so fancy, but they are definitely doing the flower lift. However, in Arizona, you can really have a show with your silk moths and these leviathans that come to a sheet. So, and now one of my areas, I'm just giving you background on what I do. So this is a trail sign I just put into Strawberry Hill. Strawberry Hill is the in Stowe Lake, where you can rent the rowboats and go around in Golden Gate Park. The island there in the middle of the thing, at the top of the hill, is one of the hottest hotspots of butterfly. You can literally sit there with your lunch and have 7, 8 species in an afternoon. It's really, and then I'll go into why there's some incredible host plants that are still native to Strawberry Hill. So, and I do Reckon Park signs now, and this is a new sign I just went in. My book has just come out, The Butterflies of the Presidio. And I have 10 pieces throughout the park. They liked what I did, like they're site-specific, and you'll start to learn that butterflies are really, it's like birding, and it's probably like being botanists too. You know when you walk into an ecosystem, you walk out of a grassland, and then you walk into coast, let's say a redwood forest, you start Rolodexing the plants that you know you're going to see because you're in this We do the same thing with butterflies. Birders do the same thing. You walk from ecosystem to ecosystem, and oh, there it is. So that's what the Butterflies of the Presidio is that we broke the park up in. It's a little tough, though, because that park is run by 3 different groups, the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, the Presidio Trust, and then the Nature Conservancy or stuff. And I started painting this book, and then they're like, oh, well, we don't run that area. That's the Presidio Trust. I'm like, then we're going to name the book Butterflies of Certain Areas of the Presidio. Or I just scoot the butterfly into your management area. Crazy. So, San Francisco, you know, when I started, I thought, and this mania took over, I thought, oh my God, San Francisco, what a hellhole for butterflies. But it actually turns out it's got a pretty dubious background. So this is a quote from Paul Ehrlich, the famous populationist down at Stanford, and he wrote, quote, "Telling numbers can be gleaned from the city and county of San Francisco. Of the 46 species recorded there before the 20th century, 21 have been lost." Wrote that in the wings of Czechoslovakia. Highly urbanized area, small little peninsula to your north. You all know it well. I live there. And the main reason is this guy right here, folks. So I go to the National Lepidopterist meetings, Liam O'Brien, San Francisco County, and you can literally see a pall over the faces of all Lepidopterists. So, San Francisco. We are more famous for what no longer flies than for what flies. And that's because of this creature, Glaucopsyche xerxes, the Xerxes blue. It was noticed it was disappearing in the late 1800s by some Lepidopterists out in the field. And then it went fully missing. It became sectioned off into the sunset. And the last one was taken in the Presidio, the old hospital of the Presidio, in 1946. It hosted on Dune knotweed and the lupin bush with the long yellow flower. Okay, so, let me just say this right away. You guys are the botanists. I sometimes slaughter my plants. So I will teach you the butterflies you do. So I think it's Chamaeensis, or Arboreus. No, that's the blue one. Okay.
Densiphorus?
Camasonis, you're right.
Anyway, there's no test at the end. So.
Yeah, you're right.
It no longer flies, not coming to your yard. So, but the main reason here, and you know, back to the subject of collecting, this butterfly, literally, there was some impact because this was the polka-dotted butterfly from San Francisco. And in the Victorian era of high collecting, it was actually a female hobby to run around collecting butterflies. And Glaucopsyche xerxes, the Xerxes blue, the polka-dotted blue from, you know what, I have a laser, but I think I'm okay here. This is the underside. The female is to the top, the male is on the bottom. And the polka dots, everybody wanted the polka-dotted butterfly from San Francisco. It went missing, it's gone. The Xerxes Society is now named for the conservation and the protection of invertebrates. So that's a good thing. But fascinatingly enough, I almost give this generation a pass. Because it was before Rachel Carson's, it was before conservation movements, and we really didn't think of things blinking out in that way. So it's sad we can no longer see Xerxes blue, and there are drawers full of it in every university in the United States, and that's better than not having them. But we now, what I say is that, you know, and you'll start to see some of my work, is that our generation, we can't have a pass anymore. We do have to step up, and we have to try to help some of these things. Anyway, more famous for what no longer flies than for what flies. That's a weird shadow to live under. So, I'm wondering if a few of you folks might know this woman. Oh, that's very interesting. So this is Barbara Deutsch.
Yeah, that is Barbara
Well,
Deutsch.
so that makes me so happy that there's a little bit, right. So welcome to the woman that turned butterfly gardening on its head as we know it. Every one of you, and many of you are, most people, when we started putting our butterfly gardens together, is that we like pretty things. Our species likes pretty flowers, we like color, and we make a garden from pretty flowers. We like the English garden of sort of crazy highs, crazy lows, and beauty and rambunctiousness. Barbara and a woman named Harriet Reinhardt, who's a lepidopterist up in San Francisco, they wrote an article, and I think it was in the early Sunset magazine in the 60s, like, what about putting the plants that she needs to eat in your garden? And it literally was a revolutionary in gardening. Barbara Deutsch had a garden in San Francisco. She now lives in Point Reyes Station. Her garden is jaw-dropping. It's jaw-dropping, and I have to take a little sidebar here because she makes some difference between native and non-native, because you drive down that pathway and bull thistle is lining the road because it's a major nectar source for butterflies, and she's definitely rock solid in her botany and her natives. So anyway, Barbara Deutsch, one of my gods. I told her that what I wanted to do in 2007, Barbara, I want to survey everything that's left in San Francisco. I want to jump fences. I want to trespass. I want to see. And it's because Dr. Jerry Powell, who I'm getting way off book here, is Jerry Powell, he said a really interesting, he's a professor emeritus at San Francisco, at Berkeley. He discovered the light brown apple moth, and he said at a lepidopterist meeting once, he said, learn where you live. And I'm like, I live in San Francisco. So, I did. I embraced it. It was my call to arms, and I did it. The first thing out of Barbara Deutsch's mouth, who had lived in San Francisco for a long time, said, quote, green hairstreaks still fly at Grandview Terrace. And little did I know. So I went looking. The Grandview Terrace and the Rocky Outcrop are some high upland mountain crops. Rocky Outcrop, extraordinary piece of land saved by Yerba Buena's CNPS and Diane Feinstein signed off of it because we have some rare plants on Rocky Outcrop. Anyway, this is Grandview Terrace to the left there. You know what? I am going to find my laser. You're not having a problem hearing me, are you? My voice can cut glass.
What part of Presidio?
So it's in the far west. It's in the sunset. Correct. So these dune islands here, it's a fascinating ecosystem. This is Grandview, and it's the furthest one to the north. And then the next one in the chain is actually Strawberry Hill in Golden Gate Park. From the ocean at Ocean Beach to the top of Grandview Terrace, here's the ocean out here, to the top of this hill are the highest upland dunes in North America. So it's an amazing, now it used to all be sand, and there's pictures, this used to be called Turtle Hill, of sand up and over. Greg Garr's fascinating shows, some amazing stuff. So I went looking for a green hairstreak, and I was painting the San Francisco wallflower, and I couldn't find it, but there it was across the way. So we're not going to get too much in. I wrote coastal bramble hairstreak. It's now changed, just like you guys. You can't keep up with all the name changes, right? So that really got me excited. I actually found something, because San Francisco butterflies are up against a lot of hostile things. It's a tough place to live. But the other thing that really got me excited was that Tilden wrote in California Butterflies, Tilden of Tilden Park fame, said this really cool thing in 1986. Something sinister is happening to California butterflies. If one returns to a locality in which a butterfly was found 50, 25, or even 10 years ago, it may not be found there now. If the area has remained unaltered by man, the chances of still finding this butterfly are most likely very good. But if man has moved in and built houses, factories, highways, or farms, we will have to look elsewhere for our butterfly, if indeed it can be found at all. I think it's kind of romantic that he said farms would be built in San Francisco. But, so seriously, again, this was part of my call to arms. He said if you go looking for it, it might still be there. And the green hairstreak was still there. So as I pursued the rest of the butterflies of San Francisco, we are now, that was my preview here. Welcome to the thrust of the show. I'm going to now talk about the 34 species I've found, the native hosts that they need. All 34 species, probably not green hairstreaks and probably not Acarioides, or we call the mission blue, can you find down this way and into Santa Clara. You guys have about double the species. So what San Francisco turns out to be is a really great place to learn your butterflies. Don't go out and buy a California field guide. Oh my God, 300 species. What is that in my yard? So what I did was I created, this is the pitch here. Because I paint and draw, I wanted to be able to just tell you what is the name of the thing that's landed on the flower in your backyard. These are the 34 species painted to scale in your backyard that come into all of your backyards, and the party trick, all the host plants that she needs. So at the end of the show, the Green Hairstreak Project, I sell these for $5, I have to say that. And this is your Willy Wonka gold ticket. So you don't have to write down everything tonight. You're going, oh my God, it's so much. But a lot of these you guys are going to know anyway. And again, so are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, swallowtails. We have 3. Welcome to the largest members of the family. There's only 5. And does anyone know this guy? Wow, we've got some lepidopterous here. Pipevine swallowtail, Bacchus phylanor. It's got a very strange, I'm going to try to hold back on all my chatty Cathiness here and really stick to the facts. We are talking about one host plant, Aristolochia californica. That's it, easy, Aristolochia. So, I bet some of you don't even know this, but Aristolochia californica and the pipevine swallowtail are remnant species when this place was a jungle. Bet you didn't know that. So this is actually a jungle butterfly, the genus Battus. It's our only representative, and it's because Aristolochia is part of a jungle ecosystem. When the whole continent was a jungle, Aristolochia is still, and this butterfly emerges when it wants to. It can stay in the pupa for 2 years. Now, Aristolochia californica, beautiful. We all love the Dutchman's pipevine blossom, and it's a cool plant. But I get more emails from botanists and gardeners. They're just like, I planted Aristolochia, where is the butterfly? So let me walk you through that one, folks. These are not party favors. These, they have a mind of their own. It's a jungle butterfly. This guy is, I had 10 places all over San Francisco. Thank God it's only 15 miles across. So I had these places that I returned to in 2007, 2009. This butterfly showed up everywhere, because it's bulleting crazily. A huge population in the Marin Headlands. And I bet you have all seen this at some time down along the way. This lady's shaking now. So, Aristolochia, Jake 6 says if you take Aristolochia vine and you wrap it 4 times and you pull off the leaves and you bury it 6 feet down, then you'll get the thing. I'm like, I'm supposed to tell them that? Anyway, I've got people in the Sunset, a guy named Mike Belcher who planted Aristolochia 20 years ago. His house is covered in it. I walked up to him like, do you garden with a machete? How do you get in the garage? And he's like, where's the butterfly? Where's the butterfly? Hey, I'm not in charge of when the butterflies arrive. But anyway, I love the passion and the zealotry that we all have as botanists and stuff. And, A plus B sometimes doesn't equal C. But the easy takeaway here, Bacchus phylanor, she only puts her eggs on Aristolochia californica. That's it. She is host specific. It's a little bit strange, evolutionary, that, but Aristolochia is everywhere. It grows in an oak woodlands, and now in the Marin Headlands, it's growing out in the sunlight. So it's a very, once it gets going, you got to get the weed whacker on that thing. But yes.
So, pardon my stupidity, but
no stupidity.
What does it mean to be a jungle butterfly? What does that actually mean?
It's a riparian. Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Aristolochia is riparian.
Aristolochia is riparian.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was in Mexico and it's hanging everywhere, and there's 7 species all over this. So from what I understand, maybe it has adapted, but from what I understood is that it's definitely part of a remnant when we were a jungle. And it still is a jungle plant with about 25 in the genus Batis. So just wanted to, but we have 33 more butterflies to go, so we got to keep this. Anyway.
What is the answer? So he had the jungle of Aristolochia, and why no butterflies?
Right.
Wait, one
so
more
because the other holdout, the other thing, like I said, it's a jungle butterfly. It is zipping around like a lunatic, and it doesn't stay long in one place. We don't have a lot of Aristolochia in San Francisco. Some in Strawberry Hill, some on Brotherhood Way behind the old oak woodlands out behind there.
Still there?
Yes, and you can still see the butterfly there, but then the butterfly will show up on the coast. I mean, it seems to have sort of this crazy nomadic, sporadic, and you don't know how it finds it.
It's like, go figure.
Correct, and it's the only one I'm going to tell you tonight about.
Butterflies do that. They go from place to place.
We got 34 to go. In general, they don't do that. They don't do that. So this one does that because it's a jungle butterfly from a jungle era with its jungle plant in town. But all the other butterflies, I'm gonna change your mind on that one. So I just wanted to point this out. It's got these beautiful polka dots. It's a gunmetal blue. Nobody else looks like the pipevine swallowtail. It's a stunning, stunning butterfly. Marin headlands, they're everywhere. They are highly attracted to red flowers. This is that hideous lily that nobody likes. They're from South Africa, I think. It's correct. Anyway, it's an aggressive non-native in San Francisco. But I just wanted to show you this, that big butterfly with a long proboscis, it's treating this long lily like a hummingbird. I mean, it's attracted. And Philonor, the pipevine swallowtail, highly attracted to red flowers. Usually all over columbine in your yard, if you put the columbine, the red columbine. Anyway, Dutchman's pipevine. It's the heart-shaped flower, and it's a beauty. So, another thing that butterflies like to do, and in your garden, maybe you can do this, is that the male butterflies are attracted to mud. The behavior is called mud puddling. I won't go into much mud behavior tonight. Mud puddling. Mud puddling is the equivalent of parrots going to a salt lick. And it's only males that you'll ever see at mud. If you go in the Sierra, you'll see millions of butterflies sitting on the side of the road. Those are all males. And it's because they're not born with the ability to produce spermatophores. They need to go to mud to get the sodium to create the sperm packets. So it's an interesting little thing. There's Philonor in the Marin headlands at the mud. So, Western tiger swallowtail. So this is the one that started my whole life. And I want to throw this out to you. This is an easy one to draw to your yard. She's a generalist on salix. Put a willow tree in the yard, folks. So, salix. So let's do pipevine. So, anybody has willow in your yard?
Yep.
Yeah. So, salix. And so, fascinatingly enough, this is a 2-for-1 tree because there's another butterfly we're going to hit, the mourning cloak, a beautiful brown butterfly, huge butterfly, one of the first to emerge during the spring because it overwinters as an adult. She also is a generalist on salix, and that's because they're both part of a riparian corridor. They use a water concourse, deciduous trees along the water concourse, mainly a lot of willow in there. So, salix, and so you're going to get the western tiger, and the mourning cloak. And this is all in the fold out at the end. Okay, so large butterfly, like I said, it's second to the largest butterfly around. We have 5 swallowtails in the Bay Area. You guys might have one down here, but the largest butterfly in the United States and the largest butterfly in the Bay Area is the two-tailed tiger swallowtail, Multicatetus. It flies at Mount Diablo. You can see it along the Mitchell Canyon Trail. And it's interesting because she hosts on Myops, M-Y-O-P-S, or hop tree. You guys know that one? It's a very limited range in the Bay Area, that plant. I'm not sure she'd come to your yard if you put that in there, but it's a very narrow corridor where that tree is, And if you go on the Mitchell Canyon, you can't believe what comes flying down. Just this giant yellow swallowtail will come down. The two-tailed tiger swallowtail. Anyway, tiger swallowtail, salix, and then you'll get a morning cloak as well. So, fascinatingly enough, as much as my work has to do with green hairstreak, and I just found the first mission blue for Fish and Wildlife yesterday up on Twin Peaks, sometimes that's where most of my work has to do, is that in these native habitats that we all cherish and love, like Coyote Ridge, or these little jewels and windows into one once was, and that's where most of my work is, in these tenuous ecosystems like the green hairstreak that have not adapted to any of the other plants in town. And you'll get it a little bit more. So, fascinatingly enough, sometimes humans actually create habitat. Welcome to Market Street. I'm just going to give you a real fast one here. This is my latest project. I've been given a grant to study. Tiger swallowtails, the western tiger, has now started to use Market Street as if it were the Kern River or the Colorado cutting through the Grand Canyon. The butterfly is attracted to a canyon aspect. We made a canyon downtown. It's attracted to a water concourse. Our species likes to plant things along the sides of things called streets. Through the POV of a butterfly are the banks of a river. So oh gosh, let's go there. And it patrols up in the canopy. And then what vaults it into the unbelievable, folks, is that we went and planted London plane trees. She hosts on sycamore as well. So this is a story. Most of the stories about butterflies are sad. We're changing the ecosystem so fast they can't keep up. Oh my God! Look what they're doing. They're using it like it's. So it's a really neat thing. However, who's the evil villain in this story here? The Better Market Street campaign. So when the Market Street was ripped up in the 70s for the tunnels of Bart and Muni, and in went the London plane trees, and I'm sure not everyone's fan of the hybrid London plane. It's the most famous urban tree in the world. The Tuileries of Paris. 80% of all London trees are London plane trees. When it was invented in 1660 by English hybrids, they took the Oriental sycamore and the American sycamore, and they created the London plane tree. And that is what's up and down. So my whole point, and this is already way too long here, because I have 32 more to go. This is a hostile ecosystem. As much as it's easy to rally the forces around an emerald green, stunning little butterfly, that's as good as having a panda walking around in your neighborhood, Mark, it's a little harder to protect a phenomenon that's at 1 Montgomery and Market. I'm trying to... These leviathans are flying up and down, patrolling, mating, breeding, laying eggs, caterpillars dropping into the cement, and that's an amazing place to try to have a moment of nature. Somebody sitting on I did a lot of temp work, and I became a professional actor, and I had lunch hours on the walls down there at some cruddy temp job, and it's a very interesting place to try to have your moment of nature. And in a story, if we do it right, it's as good as the swallows of Capistrano, I can tell you. So you'll be hearing more about that. They don't call me the Pied Piper of Papiliods for nothing. So, next to this, anyone know this guy? Come on. Oh, got it. You're getting a cookie at the end or something. And a swallowtail. Okay, so folks, this is an easy one. Lomatium. We're going to write lomatium down. So. What I said, she lays eggs on a plant or the family of plants. Well, welcome to a real generalist. She puts her eggs on anything in the carrot family. Good, I'm with botanists. Yeah, I don't have to split. So, you want this, lomatium is her native. So, lomatium is a great one for your yard because we all like it and it's native and a lot of bees use it. So let me tell you a little fascinating thing. Oh, and the other thing, wait 1 second. So, dill, you want this butterfly in your yard, you can plant dill, an annual, and also parsley. She'll lay her eggs on parsley. But what we don't want to plant Gosh, this is an easy group here for me. Right. However, let me walk you through an interesting fact. And as Robert Michael Pyle, the American god of American butterflying, always says, do not be afraid of telling the whole story. So just because I'm telling the whole story does not mean there's going to be a mad rush to go plant fennel, because we all know that's an aggressive non-native that you would never, that I've ripped enough out of with Jake Sig. So, however, let me just walk you through this little party trick. In laboratory in UC Davis, when she's given all of her natives, she'll also use cow parsnip. And so they lined up with all of her natives, and fennel, 99.9. She lays her eggs on fennel. So it's an interesting thing, and the fennel moved in, I think they said in seed stock, maybe in the Central Valley in the 1800s. And anyway, the Anna Swallowtail. I like to just walk people really quick. So those are only two yellows. So swallowtail comes into your yard, it's yellow. What did Liam say? Yellow stripes, western tiger, black stripes, tiger, black shoulders, and a swallowtail. This one flies a little faster too. So you won't remember that, but that's okay. So we're done with the swallowtails. The exotic, if none of you know this, I'd be shocked. Cabbage White, that's right. Pieris rape. And it's interesting, I'm making you speak the Latin, because Lepidoptera speak Latin like plant folks too, so you're getting a pass tonight. This is an exotic butterfly that came in through the 1800s through Quebec. Fascinatingly enough, it now uses radish, its native host, because now the radish is now not native here. So it's actually using its right host, but they're both exotics. So, and then one of my favorite things to do, and again, I know I'm a nerdy lepidopterist because I still get excited when I see cabbage whites. It's an interesting thing. You can actually sex a cabbage white. The males only have one dot on the forewing, and the females have two. That's an interesting. You'll have that party trick to play in your garden. And then the other cool thing in the Marin Headlands, if you go to the lighthouse, you can see cabbage whites using cabbage. Because the lighthouse keeper's wife made a garden in the late 1800s, and the cabbage is now naturalized out onto the headlands. I might be the only geek like, oh my god, a cabbage white is a cabbage. It makes me laugh, I don't know. But we need to take it out. It's not supposed to be there. Okay, so this is an important one to talk about because we all think those white butterflies flying around, but actually there's another one hiding right in plain sight. And when it lands, that's what you get to see. Welcome to Euchloea sonides, my favorite butterfly. This is called the large marble. Her native host is Erebus. Beautiful native, isn't it a little pink flower? Rockcress, thank you. Told you I'd slaughter these. And she's got a beautiful marbling. They fly all over Twin Peaks. They're all over Santa Clara Valley. And it's so the point being, take a second look every time a cabbage white comes into your yard, because and also all the native mustards. They've definitely moved over to the non-native mustard. But like tower mustard, or I think it's called tansy. There's a tansy mustard. They're like, oh my god, he doesn't know his plants. How did he? Yeah, Asonides. Yeah, that's when it lands. Jaw-dropping. So butterflies do, I was laying on my stomach. This is a female emanating pheromones and the male's coming in for a landing. But when they land, look at that. I mean, wow, huh? I also think someone told me it might be using wintergreen, which is kind of rare in San Francisco. Do you guys have a lot of it down here, wintergreen? No. Okay. Anyway, she's emanating pheromones and he's attracted. Butterflies need to be close-range pheromone exchange, and moths are far-range pheromone exchange. So a moth with these big pluming antennas you've seen in the silk moths, that's a male. He can find a girl 6, 7, 20 miles away with his things. But butterflies literally, first they're attracted to the color, then the pattern, and then the pheromone. It's like boom, 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 boom. And they need to be very close. Another quick thing, you don't know if it's a butterfly or moth. All butterflies have clubbed antennae. So see the little clubs there? If something lands in your yard and it doesn't have a club, it's a moth. So
which butterfly was that?
this is the large marble, Euchloia sonades.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's hiding in plain sight in the Bay Area because a lot of people think it's a cabbage white. So, orange sulfur. This one is the one that smashes all over your window when you're driving to UC Davis when you're going through the alfalfa fields. Some of the butterflies in the United States are actually considered pests, and millions of dollars are spent every year to destroy them. Yeah. What a nice group. That was so... yeah. It made that little kitty noise. That was pet noise. This is the orange sulfur. Fascinatingly enough, its native host before we put alfalfa in the ground is Lotus scaparius. A tough plant to really get going in anybody's garden, I think, and I'm so happy with the plant people. I think it needs a fire I think it's a fire obligate plant from what...
Anyway,
Yeah, we have
Rock
it
on, tell me.
We have it on thin, nutrient-poor soil at 2,400 feet up.
Okay.
We don't do anything for it. It's just in wildlands, and it just thrives.
Yeah, and if you try to plant, if you try to put it in pots and sell it at a
it
sale,
doesn't cultivate well.
there you go. That's what it. So it's the anyway. But I do like to. There's a solid population of this butterfly. This is the yellow one that you see flicking around very fast and low to the ground. On the Lobos dunes and the Presidio, there's a whole population of orange sulfurs that are using Lotus scaparius. They're not using. So this is a native butterfly. And anyway, dismissed because it's a pest up in the Central Valley, but it's one of our beauties. When it lands, it does something. So most butterflies, when they land at a flower in your backyard, you're looking down at the top of a butterfly. That's called dorsal basking. Most of us are looking down at the top of a butterfly, but a few of the butterflies tonight, and this is the first one, green hairstreak will be one and stuff, it's called lateral basking. And that means when it's at a flower, you're looking at the bottom of the butterfly. And they rarely open. That's why I even have this bad picture here, because I'm like, wow, quick, this is Lasinjia. So this is the endangered Lasinjia on dunes. And my friend got it because you rarely see the top. But this is also another butterfly that you can sex from the patterns here. So the male has the solid black border. And when the female is landing, you can see these little windows in her black border here. So, anyway, yellow, beautiful butterfly. Okay, we're done with the pierrots. We're now into the largest group of butterflies, the medium-sized butterflies that are come to the yard. And this one I've already mentioned, because what is this butterfly on? The mourning cloak. This is Nymphalas Antiopa, the mourning cloak. Fascinatingly enough, people used to think this butterfly had 2 full generations. But actually, it turns out it only has 1. And this butterfly, as an adult, can live for 9 months. No other butterfly does that in the Bay Area. I'll get into monarchs a little bit later, but most butterflies... so let me walk you through something, and this is a thing that I say on my walks, and people are like, you've got to be kidding. Okay. She lives... in general, about 10 to 15 days, and she's an egg-laying machine. She lays about 75 to 100 eggs in her brief life. 80% of all those eggs are eaten by everyone that is, all the other bugs that are on a bush. 80%. So, 20% get to the larval stage, the caterpillars and the instars. 80% of the 20% of the 80% that got to a caterpillar, put your seatbelts on, parasitized by wasps and flies. Caterpillars crawling along, native fly, native bee, native wasp, native gnat, lands on it, she injects an egg into it, caterpillar crawls for another day or so, stops, and a fully formed fly comes right out of the side of the caterpillar. 80% of the 20% of the 80% of the 20% that become pupae are parasitized by gnats and flies as well that come out of there. 80% of the 20% of the 80% of the 20% of the 80% of the 20% that become the pretty stage that we all like, that gets to the thing, 80% of butterflies on the wing, eaten by birds. So ladies and gentlemen, this group of creatures that we adore, that we love because they're pretty, are a giant smorgasbord for everyone else. And that is the fact. Fascinatingly enough, and this is a misnomer, and I don't want to break your little gardening hearts, they're not pollinators. Bees and flies are doing the heavy lifting. The flowers and the moths at night. Moths will pollinate. Butterflies do not pollinate flowers. That's a giant misnomer in the gardening community. Now, monarchs are known because they have long, spindly legs. They can pick up some pollen. Their legs sort of inadvertently pick it up, but it's inadvertent. They're not doing it to pollinate the next flower that they go to. So just know that for a fact. Butterflies are really feeding everyone else in the nature world. So that's a neat kind of thing to, I don't know if it's neat, but I mean to throw. Yes.
The name of butter?
You know, cholesterol flies. You know, there's so many theories on that one. I've heard that the German is Butter, there's a lot of Schmetterling, maybe. There's a lot of theories about the butterfly thing. I've heard 7 million different ones.
I thought somebody got confused saying flutterby.
Flutterby, right, I've heard that one. Okay, so I am going to power through. They're like, oh my god, he has 28 more to go. California tortoiseshell, really stunning beautifier. Nymphalas californica. You know how you can help California tortoiseshells? Ceanothus. She's a generalist on Ceanothus. I bet 90% of this room has Ceanothus in their yard. So, we like that one, right? Ceanothus. This butterfly is a very complicated flight tortoiseshell. It has movements. It's actually our only migrant really is the monarch, and we'll get to that one. But this butterfly is actually our only emigrant. And it took me a couple seasons to listen, and I also want to say this to you. Do not get discouraged. You know, it's like me with my plants. I am allowed to slaughter the Latin for about 5 or 6 or 7 years, and Jake just rolls his eyes. But let yourself do that too with butterflies. You know, I remember when San Bruno Mountain, I'm like, oh, there's a fritillary, and then someone, young man, that's a fritillary. And I'm like, and then this British guy stepped in and he goes, actually, it's both. I love that. Isn't that cool? So, you know, don't be intimidated. You know, and again, it's a really glorious group of creatures that you can get into. So, Ceanothus. Liam said put Ceanothus in mind. She's a generalist on all Ceanothus. In fact, I have a feeling she's using the Home Depot Ceanothus too. So, that's another show. All right, so welcome to a really interesting... Yes, are we good? Are we still going? Okay, and they're like, okay, gotta go to bed. Fascinating butterflies, satyr anglewing. And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. Isn't that what we just looked at? No, this is a different species. Satyr anglewing, and listen to this one. Its native is stinging nettle, urtica. So there's a population still left in Golden Gate Park. Not a lot of stinging nettle, although, you know, we know where the stinging nettle is, in the riparian, wet, sort of boggy areas. And Golden Gate Park, Gloria Gotch Gonzalez, the executive director, and, you know, I'm teaching her staff the butterflies and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, you know, plant more stinging nettle. She's like, okay, Liam, I have people walking down paths. I can't have stinging urtica. This butterfly, one of my first butterfly counts, the Berkeley Butterfly Count. And let me back up for 1 second here. The Lepidoptera Society, a glorious society because one of the founding tenets is they make no distinction between the amateur and the academic. Let me tell you, I would not be standing here if I was dissecting genitalia for 4 years looking for a PhD. There's takes zealots and activists, and then there's the scientists. But we're all together, the passionate hobbyists. We all can move the science forward, that's really one of the founding tenets of that, and I'm the living personification of that. So, Satyr anglewing, stinging nettle. She's not moved over to any other plant, and that's a little unfortunate. It's becoming more and more reduced stinging nettle in those kind of ecosystems. Berkeley butterfly count. The Redwood Park up in the Berkeley Hills there. This butterfly lands, and I take the net and I swoop it up, and this bag is just full of, and I have a short sleeve shirt on, and I stick my arm, because the butterfly's at the end of the net, and Felix Sperling, this professor from Canada, he goes, that's stinging nettle. My arm for like 2 days. We all know it's stinging nettle. Hey, the moral of the story is don't swing nettle. Don't swing a net in nettle land.
Look out for dock leaves.
Dock?
Dock leaves.
Okay.
The plant.
That'll do it too?
It's a British remedy.
Okay.
And it stops the sting of stinging nettle.
Well, thank God at 51 I can finally go, okay, that's urtica, stop. So I don't need to put my hand on that burner. So this is now into a very important story that I do want to tell you. Satyr anglewing only uses stinging nettle. Welcome to a guy that's in everybody's backyard. This is?
Red Admiral.
Very good. The Red Admiral. Everyone say Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Atalanta. Like the city only with an extra A. Atalanta. Okay, Vanessa Atalanta. Satyr anglewing only uses stinging nettle. Red Admiral only used stinging nettle until something showed up in town into the sidewalk crack of every street in every city. Pellitory.
Oh my God.
And now, this butterfly that only flies 3 months a year in the spring and can only use when the urtica can be eaten, it only has 2 flights. I don't want to get too, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you guys tonight. So it has 2 flights on the urtica. And then that's what the Red Admiral used to have on the stinging nettle. And then Pellitory showed up into town. Again, what I said to you, she's a generalist in a family of plants. So I think it's in the mint family or the nettle family, right? Duh, right? Guess what? She now flies 12 months a year in San Francisco and 12 months a year in the Bay Area because of this non-native in the same family. You're going to hear that about 5 times tonight. Does that mean you would ever plant that ridiculous creeping in your backyard?
Yes.
Okay. We will all give you a machete on your exit in 10 years. That's a tough plant to No, okay.
It's okay. It's manageable.
Let me just walk you through something. I have actually been asked to talk at CNPS chapters, and they won't be mentioned right now, which ones. They said, oh, Liam, whatever you do, do not mention non-natives. You know, Lepidopterus, I'm here to tell the whole story. I painted a painting of Anna Swallowtail nectaring on radish. Now, again, generalist on nectar sources. Generalist on nectar. You know, butterflies going down the I-5 of life, they don't know the difference between stopping at Whole Earth Foods and Jack in the Box. It's all food to them. So, Peter Brasto of Nature in the City looked at this oil painting I did of an Anna Swallowtail radish. And he goes, oh, too bad. I'm like, what? He goes, it's a beautiful painting, but I can't use it. I'm like, why? And he goes, well, the radish. And I said, oh, so if you don't show the picture, it's not happening? Or, if you show the picture, you think there's going to be a giant rush for radish? That's what Bob Pyle's talking about. Don't be afraid of... And I have to tell you, I've been at groups where, like, I would imagine the opposite would be like, pellitory. I mean, it's an aggressive non-native, but I have 27 more to go. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you get that. A non-native moved into town, and that's a whole other thing. Okay, welcome to Painted Ladies. We're not going to stay too long on these guys, because these don't take them on until your 4th or 5th year. Vanessa Cardaway she's a generalist. She'll use thistles. She'll use a lot of non-natives. It's the most widespread butterfly in the world, circumpolar, 6 of the 7 continents.
They like Dr. Best, which is a weed.
Got it. Okay, I'll take that. She's a generalist in many families. This is coming for a little later. So, Vanessa Annabella, probably the prettiest name. This is the West Coast painted lady. This is a very important take-home tonight. So this is Sildacia, checker bloom. Dalcia,
Adelphia.
They're like, oh my God, how did he get in here? He doesn't know his plants. Okay, not only is it the West Coast painted lady, it also is the common checkered skipper, the little one. I just heard a yes back there. So I like to point out tonight that there are certain plants that you put in your garden that 2-3 butterflies will host on. And those are the important ones. And now I'm slaughtering the spelling. Common checkered skipper. And again, the same story applies. So, checker bloom. In San Francisco, our only native representative of the mallow family. And then cheeseweed moved into town. Every vacant lot, every San Francisco, cheeseweed. Parvifolia, I think Malva parvifolia. And guess who now flies 12 months a year because of cheeseweed? She's a generalist in the mallow family. Only knows one mallow, and then all of a sudden there's a new mallow on town. Boom. Good girl. She's finding her way. She's evolving as we...
So you're talking about the checkered skipper.
The West Coast
West Coast.
painted lady and the...
And both.
Yes. They both had one flight on checker bloom. They're both mallow obligates.
How about bushmallow?
That's the Cardaway, the painted lady. Yeah. Tree mallow is Cardaway. But I was just going to talk about natives, right? Okay, and then the other one that's a little harder to notice, but it's actually considered the most beautiful butterfly underside in the United States. This is, everyone say Vanessa? Virginiensis. This is the American painted lady, considered the most beautiful underside. Oh, no, I thought I had a picture. Sorry. So, but painted lady 101, you're like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding. There's 3 species of these things. But fascinating enough, if you stick with it, you will get it. If you're looking down and the forewing disc cell, this is the forewing, and this disc cell right here. If you're looking down and these are all basking dorsally. There you go. You can all look down. This orange disc, you can stop right there. You're at Vanessa Annabella. You're at the West Coast painted lady. It also has sort of a fluted forewing too. There's a little notch here. The other, if you look down and you see white and white, you know you're at the other 2. So that's when I started. And this one's mostly orange in flight too. These 2 have little scalloped wing edges, but that's like Painted Lady 101. Don't take it on till your 3rd or 4th year. Even when it lands, you're like, okay, I think that's a painted lady. You can start. That's good. Just start right there.
The West Coast lady is also smaller.
Yes, slightly smaller, and Cardaway, the painted lady, is the largest.
And the kits they sell to kids in toy stores,
right?
Where they send in for the cocoons, painted lady cocoons.
Right, they're mostly Cardaway. Yeah. But we're going to talk about that little industry in a while. All right. Okay, you know what? I missed one thing. The Pearly Everlasting. Nephalium. That's her host. So put Nephalium in your yard. GN, right?
That's pseudo.
Wait a minute. What wasn't it Nymphalas?
Nymphalas, yes. That's Pearly Everlasting.
See, I just fixed it for CNPS people. Okay, so Nymphalas is its native host, Pearly Everlasting, but then those Australian Nephalians moved into sidewalks, and she's using those too. Did you get all that? American painted lady. Pearly Everlasting. That's a pretty one for your yard, right?
There's native Nephaliums too.
You're right. She's using those. Somebody told me it had just changed.
Yeah.
Didn't it get all changed?
Oh, yeah.
Pseudo-Nephalium.
Like the feeling
Okay.
wasn't bad enough.
All right, so we're going to move this along because you're all getting a little antsy. Up.
Ooh, nice show.
Thanks. Okay. No, we're almost there. Okay, Buckeye, Junonia senia. I'm constantly being corrected by Jerry Powell on senia. Coenia, senia. The common Buckeye. Native it will use scrophularias and the plantains, the native plantains, the dwarf plantain and stuff. And then what moved into town? English plantain. And now this butterfly flies 8 months a year. Highly recognizable. We all know what buckeyes look like nothing else. So this is what I want to say to you a little bit, is that this is what I like to say, because I'm a lepidopterist and I'm trying to tell the whole story. I know we all like our native gardens, but if you start to learn about some of the weeds in the garden that they are using, I'm seeing a lot of chortling out there, it's not so much, you will now, if you want to garden for butterflies, and you make the connection that they might use that, I'm just throwing it out to you. You know, take the weed whacker, do what you want, but it's just a different way to think about your garden. Okay, wow, it wasn't thrown out. Okay. Okay, welcome to my favorite story in Bay Area butterfly gardening. This is our only non-native butterfly on a non-native host. Wow. Very good. Agrillus vanillae. So the species is actually vanilla, and that's because back during Linnaeus's time, somebody saw one of these land on the orchid, and they thought it was the host plant. And no one's ever fixed it. Vanilla. This is Agrillus vanilla. Crazy. No one fixed it. But actually, passiflora. So any of the Home Depot passifloras that you put in your yard, this butterfly, nomadic, and another, whoops, I forgot. This is actually a jungle butterfly too. So listen to this. When and this is great, you guys are all plant people. When all things tropical began to explode in Hollywood, the 30s and the 40s, palm trees, canna lilies, calla lilies, all those things started to go into nurseries in Southern California. Guess what went into? Passifloras. And passifloras moved up California nurseries, and up moved the Mexican butterfly. Up out of Mexico. It took a nice stronghold in the Mission District of San Francisco about the 60s. It's our only non-native butterfly on a non-native host because our species likes passion vine. Isn't that a great story? Fascinatingly enough, it can't overwinter with a frost. So as global warming keeps changing the climate, this butterfly overwinters in the larva stage. Butterflies all overwinter in different of the 4 stages. Some overwinters eggs, larvae, pupae, adults. The adult is actually a great Scrabble word. Nobody uses it. The imago, I-M-A-G-O. An imago is the phase that we all like. So it's really ova, larva, pupa, imago. But we call them all butterflies. Great Scrabble word. Anyway, the imago, the Gulf frit. I was in Puerto Vallarta in November, and Gulf fritillaries were everywhere because passion vine it's a Central American butterfly. Can't survive a frost, but it seems to be pushing. Its northern extremes were in the hills of Berkeley, and then it was found over in Vacaville and then Davis. It seems to be pushing the frost zone, so it's an interesting sort of indicator. You put this in your garden, I guarantee this butterfly will show up. It's showing up everywhere, and once it starts laying eggs, she's nodding her head, once it starts laying its eggs, oh my God, I mean, it's like a Hitchcock movie. They're everywhere. So, and it's a beautiful butterfly. It's a beautiful butterfly.
And it floats, it doesn't fly.
Correct. And that's because it's actually in a family called the Heliconians. It's our only representative of the Heliconians, and all the other Heliconians are in Mexico. So you're right, it has a distinct flight. So there's a passion vine at Alamany Farm, which is a really neat place in San Francisco. And Jake was sad because it was one of the few natural springs in San Francisco that they didn't make into one of the natural areas. So, yeah, this Natural Areas program runs all of our native habitat that's left, a faction of San Francisco Rec and Park. And Alameda Farm got away because there's an actual spring there. And now it's actually an educational farm that school kids come in. So it's got a great purpose, but there was a rockin' native habitat there in one time. Anyway, they planted passion vine around this thing. Oh my gosh. When the orb spiders come out in October, there is a thing going on. Let me just walk you through this. So, this, I think it's one of the big spiders. He's got a female wrapped up here. She's emanating pheromones, and in comes the males because the males want to have sex with the wrapped up one. And then this spider had its legs wrapped on the girl, and he's trying to pull in the male. It's like, oh my God. So that was sort of a really, I mean, you have to be a lepidopterist to appreciate that, but that was the tree of life.
The willow.
Okay, so Euphydrus chalcedon, very closely related to Euphydrus editha bayensis, the bay checker spot up on Coyote Ridge. This is the variable checker spot. You guys, I mean, the Santa Clara chapter is so big and spread out. When I say put monkey flower in your yard, I'm sure a lot of you, yeah. So scrophularia and monkey flower, and this butterfly indeed could show up. This butterfly is the most widespread butterfly in California, even more widespread than the Cabbage Whites. You go to the high Sierras and you literally see them walking on the sidewalks. I mean, So that's the thing in San Francisco, is that they're trapped in one little population up behind Laguna Honda. This butterfly, and I'm doing some work with the PUC, they own our largest piece of coastal scrub left up behind Laguna Honda Reservoir, this slope. And it's the only place where the chalcedon checker spot, or the variable checker spot, still flies. Scrophularia, bee plant, and then sticky monkey. They will use both. But when you hop the fence and you walk along there, the butterfly's walking along the ground. I'm sure this butterfly never could mix with traffic. Fascinating thing, F.X. Williams, who was a lepidopterist, like myself there in 1911, said this butterfly is not destined to remain in San Francisco for many more years, as the coastal scrub and things are being cut up. Now, 100 years later, there's one population left. So it's probably our most tenuous, and it's the saddest story, but I'm not sure what the solution is, but more open space. It's a glorious butterfly to behold. This is Laguna Honda. Up behind it, there's sticky monkey. It's a great plant for your yard. I'm sure all of you have it in your yard. I can guess that. This is the top of it. And I like it so much, I painted it, and it's on the cover of my field guide here. So there's this. Okay, you can see it on San Bruno Mountain. You can see it everywhere, probably up in Coyote Ridge. It's a coastal scrub obligate throughout the Bay Area. It does an interesting thing. The other thing. It also hosts on owl clover and castanheas, the Indian paintbrushes, the Indian warriors. And it does an interesting thing. Most butterflies lay one egg, and then the caterpillar eats, and then it moves along. This butterfly lays a cluster of eggs, and all the caterpillars hang out. They all sleep together. They all graze together. They all sit under ledges when it rains together. It's called gregarious clustering, and this is the only butterfly that does it. No, you'll see a wad of them on the Indian paintbrush.
Do they do that like the 4th and 5th instar?
Yeah, they split up at the last one. The last one, they don't do that. Then they go off and make their pupae. But that's a picture of... God, do we even... I guess it's the light.
I think pipevine do that too.
I didn't know. So this is the underside of checker spot. It's a beautiful red from the side. Probably a little... Okay, so this one I'm going to write down because the field crescent, Physeodes campestris, she hosts on the Aster complex. Any asters in your yard, and mainly in San Francisco, it's Chilensis.
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, he doesn't know how to.
That looks like
Right, so that's a really good picture to show you, and again, I know I'm like the Prince of Darkness when it comes to your gardening flowers. One of the main flowers that went into every butterfly gardening packet in the 70s when butterfly gardening got going was yarrow. Gotta have yarrow in your yard for butterflies. Yarrow, it's at the top of every butterfly list. You will never see a butterfly nectaring on yarrow. $20 bill to me if anyone ever sees. What's happening here is they're using it as a platform for sex. This is a male and female. So a lot of our butterflies are sexually dimorphic. So that simply means, like humans, males and females look different. It's true of most of our butterflies. Not all of them, but most of them. The female is usually a little bit larger in a butterfly. Why would a female be larger? Wow, you guys are all going home with cookies. And the male is a little bit smaller. So, sitting on yarrow, not nectaring on yarrow. Yeah. So this is the other one. This is Physiotes myleta, the myleta crescent, a little orange butterfly. She hosts on thistles, and she's moved over to Italian thistle, but flies up and down water concourses. And also has moved over to tumbleweed. Yeah, Atriplex. Yes? No. We'll get to it. Okay, Quercus. Anything in the Quercus family in your yard? Welcome to the California sister. One of our most beautiful butterflies. She only lays her eggs on Quercus. It makes, you can't not see it. It's high up in the canopy. It sort of does this flap, flap, glide, and it's a spectacular butterfly. This is, when I was surveying the butterflies of the Presidio, this was the first one. They kind of are mainly show up in August and September. This is a California sister in the pinnacles. What is the butterfly doing there? Mud puddling, I heard it, thank you. It's hard to see with this light. Okay. Yeah. So, Danaus plexippus, the monarch, probably the most celebrated butterfly in the world. You all know that this is a milkweed obligate. This is the Asclepius. I went to a Jesuit prep school and I just slaughtered the Latin.
They would be proud of you.
6 years of Spanish. I can only remember the Our Father. Danaus plexippus, the monarch, our only migrant. So, so celebrated, I can't add much to this. In fact, when I've been asked to paint this, like, how do I do this without just the biggest cliche of a painting? It's so beautiful. It's so celebrated. We all love monarchs, love them, come to our yard. So when you see a monarch, 1 year later, if you're standing in the same place and you see a monarch, you're looking at the great-grandchild of the one you saw. It takes 4 full generations to make the flight. And it's really the October to March generation that lives the longest. The other 3 generations only live 2 to 3 months, but it's the overwintering generation that live 4 to 5 years. Now, we have an interesting dilemma, and I put this to you as plant people. I assume milkweed is native to Santa Clara and San Mateo, right? Do we have narrow-leafed milkweed? Well, guess what? We have no milkweed in San Francisco. This one gets Jake's Reckles up here. So, and I asked this hypothetically too. So, our species likes to help butterflies. And so, I get a lot of like, oh, I've got some anise in a glass and I'm overwintering, I'm helping the butterflies through the winter. I'm like, yeah, but you're starving some birds somewhere. I mean, the big picture, now that you've all learned, is that butterflies are food for a lot of other things. So, do we plant milkweed in the county of San Francisco in a once upland dune ecosystem if milkweed was never part of the ecosystem? I don't know what the answer is. I'm asked it a lot. There's some in the Bott Garden there in the Golden Gate Park. However, historically, monarchs have probably only passed through San Francisco. Maybe wintered a little bit, but not a lot of trees historically. Some of them Monterey pines and stuff. And now Mr. Sutro, in his lovely gift on Arbor Day, gave us 900 million eucalyptus trees. Trying to find these guys every overwintering is needle and haystack work for me, but I don't want eggs thrown at me. Stunning butterfly, obviously. Aposematic coloration. This is orange and black. That means do not touch me, I'm toxic. Velvet ants, coral snakes, Gila monsters, black, red, or orange. Do not touch me, I'm toxic. That's condors. I've never had an impulse to gnaw on a condor. Okay, we are moving this along. Welcome to a really cool little butterfly. This is the California ringlet, Nymphalas californica. This butterfly probably won't show up to your yard because it needs native grass. Any of the native grasses. And fascinating enough, if you go into an ecosystem, this is the little one that's flopping along really low to the ground. And a lot of people think it's a moth. But a fascinating thing is going on with this, guys, and you guys will love this when you finally see it. In the spring, when the grass is green, the first brood is celery green. And then, as the grass ages and becomes browner, the last generation is the color dead grass. They are cryptically involved with the change of grass. Isn't that cool? It's the only butterfly that does that. And you can literally see that. They're green in the spring, and they're ghosts. They look like a dead, hollow piece of grass, the last brood in November. They're cryptically colored to the grass. Love that. Native grasses. Great question. And so this is, and I'm glad you asked this. So you go to the field guide, Liam said work on it, and you go to the host plant section, right? Poaceae. They always stop right there. They'll just say Poaceae, right? Grasses, grass. Poaceae. I'm sorry, I'm slaughtering Latin. Not enough, I'll tell you why. Not enough grad students have gone on their hands and knees and keyed out all the grasses with all the caterpillars eating them down there. And that's why all the field guides stop at grasses. Anybody that uses a grass, so you guys, we've all been up against that. It's true with the lepidopterus. Okay, green hairstreak. This is a project that I started at the end of this. Simply so, Eriogonum latifolium, coast buckwheat, Lotus scoparius historically, but we can't really get that going. Eriogonum latifolium, coast buckwheat, dune plant, coast plant. Up and over from the ocean all the way into the bay. Green hair streaks, they still fly on San Bruno. It emerges in the early spring. Here it is on Seaside Daisy. Seaside Daisy, write that one down. So that's a major nectar source, and it's a stunning, beautiful plant. That's a great one for your yard for nectar. 3 populations of this butterfly left. In the Sunset District, there are 2 separate populations, and then they're still flying on the Presidio bluffs. We are simply flooding the neighborhood with Eriogonum latifolium. We are literally knocking on doors and giving out the plant. Please put this in your yard. I'm not asking you to become Jane Goodall and pitch a tent and dedicate your life to this creature. I'm asking you, she has not moved over to any weeds in the sidewalk cracks. Eriogonum latifolium is the only plant that she will use. And she once flew its emerald green, nickel-sized butterfly. When I started the Green Hairstreak project, Lorette Rogers from the Bay Institute, she said, God, a green butterfly. She said, I'm trying to get people excited about mud snails. And you've got a green butterfly walking around it. She goes, that's like having a panda walking around in a neighborhood. So I admit that the beauty of the green hairstreak has gotten us a lot of press. It has a strong instinct to hilltop, and a lot of our butterflies do, and that's why I did the sign. So what that means, and a little butterfly 101 here, males usually hang out near where they were born, And females move through populations and have multiple partners and mix up the genetic stock. It's the girls of butterflies that mix up the genetics and have lots of dates. And it's the boys that all sort of hang out at a hilltop. So you'll learn this. You'll go to a hilltop and go, oh my God, he was right. There's 10 species sitting on a hilltop. Hilltops at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon are the singles bars of butterflies. It's a 20-to-1 ratio. It's mainly 20 guys hanging out, waiting for girls. They are so programmed for motion, you can see it with buckeyes along a path. If you throw a rock above a buckeye, it flies up, tries to mate with the rock. I mean, people used to think this was territorial or pugnacious behavior. No, just dumb as spit. Anything that moves. Anything. I do it when I do my walks, and you're like, and you know, all these PhDs, and you're like, no, it's not, oh, it's fighting another male, it's in its territory. No, it's moving. It's throw a rock, throw a flower, just, it's programmed for, that might be a girl. And one of the craziest things about buckeyes, so males are spread out on a path. That's the butterfly. You're walking along a path and a buckeye will fly up. We've all seen buckeyes on paths. So 2 males will see each other and they'll go straight up in the air. Pheromone exchange. And then when they realize it's 2 guys, they split up and then they go away. But then, this is my favorite part about butterfly guys. Then they land, they're like, oh, that might be a girl again. And you can watch 2, like, they just have, like Etch-a-Sketch. They have no memory that was a guy. Oh, it might be a girl. It's just dumb as a box of hammers. I love that. Okay, so the Green Hairstreak Project. It's taken off like I could never have imagined. We have students this year from San Francisco State doing some actual citizen science, collecting butterflies. I've been asked to talk about this project in Singapore next year in a conservation. So again, this has taken off, and again, my background is an actor. I'm a conservationist and an activist now, and I don't know life through this interesting new chapter. So I'm very proud of it, but it's not just me. I had the idea, Nature in the City took it, and it is just flying along. This is the corridor. I hope you can all come April 20th and May 12th. I'm leading some walks and you get to go in. Hawk Hill, one of our most pristine, beautiful ecosystems. You get to see tons of dune helia, lots of stuff up there on Hawk Hill. The Golden Gate Heights Park, Rocky Outcrop, and then the Grandview Terrace. And the breeding populations are on Rocky Outcrop and Hawk Hill. And what we did is we acquired some land through the Department of Public Works. This is Robert Michael Pyle, God of American Butterflying. He came. This is Jake. Jake is in here somewhere. We're on Rocky Outcrop here. Bob Pyle wrote about it in his latest book called Mariposa Road. He founded the Xerxes Society. Okay, Green Hairstreak. Sad story, only one plant. Welcome to the other gray hairstreak. So put your seatbelts on for this and you'll love this. I just kept saying she'll only use family of plants. Welcome to the butterfly that does something that nobody else. This butterfly jumps genera. This butterfly female will lay her eggs on cactus, pine, mustard, sedum, moss. And the caterpillars eat it. This butterfly in the Midwest, millions of dollars every year are spent to kill the corn borer. And this is the butterfly that lays its eggs on ears of corn. And like the apple industry, we don't like the cosmetic, we don't like apples with holes in them. Well, corn growers don't like little holes in corn ears. This is the corn borer. But in San Francisco and the Bay Area, this is the gray hairstreak, and this is the beautiful other hairstreak. Has a beautiful false tail here, like the swallowtails. So some of our butterflies, mainly the swallowtails, but some of the hairstreaks have evolved a false head on the back. Let me walk you through that. These are false eyes. This is a false antenna. This is an evolutionary get-out-of-free jail card. The bird comes in. The butterfly can't survive this bite, but the butterfly can survive this bite. And you'll see lots of butterflies with notches out of them. And now that I've told you, that's because that's bird food. Butterflies are bird food. They have evolved this, it's a little bit like the lizard breaking off the tail. Well, butterflies have that same little get out of jail free card. This is another close-up of Strymon malinus. And again, you don't need to put anything special in your yard. I can guarantee you this butterfly's laid eggs in your yard. Whether you have a sedum yard or, you're a succulent gardener, she'll find something for her kids to eat. It's a beautiful butterfly, stunning. And again, fascinating that here it's found its niche. We always sort of, light brown apple moth was found, and it's a pest in Australia, $1 million to spray, and malathion, and I grew up in San Jose, gypsy moths. I remember helicopters down up over the suburbia. But fascinating enough, sometimes when we find some of this Lepidoptera in town, light brown apple moth, we don't know that it hasn't been here for decades, and it's found its niche. The other one, Gulf fritillary. That's a non-native that moved in on the passion vine, right? Well, we didn't helicopter and spray the thing. It found a way of finding. So some of it is not all going to eat everything to the ground like locusts. But fascinating, in the Midwest, like I said, there's millions of dollars are spent every year to kill that butterfly. Okay, Ackman blue. This one, I know I'm like, you've got to be kidding, he's still writing. Eriogonum latifolium, right?
Snow Mountain.
Coast buckwheat. Well, not only is it the green hairstreak, it's also the Ackman blue there. Green, you only have green hairstreaks in the area, but Ackman blues. So, that's a 2-for-1 plant. Coast buckwheat, glorious bees. We've all watched coast buckwheat with the pom-poms. Put that one in your yard, ladies and gentlemen. These are, this is a male and female. They stay together for about 20 minutes before she has some more dates in her speed dating. And they're sitting on the pom-pom of a dried up Eriogonum there. So they also use flowers as a platform. That's on Lobos Dunes. Okay, this is a really cool butterfly. This is the Echo Blue. And this is the one that you can learn about because it's dancing high up in the canopy of the trees. Once you see a blue up in your canopy, you're at the Echo Blue. No other blue is going to be doing that, so that's an easy one to learn when you're starting. It also has a common name called the Spring Azure, and it's a beautiful butterfly. She uses Toyon and Ceanothus, so it's sort of a coastal scrub bush obligates. Mud puddling there. This is the female. She has a black border there. This is the eastern-tailed blue. She's a pea generalist. I'm just going to blast through some of these. Some of these are not going to be coming to your yard. This is the western-tailed blue, and I'm going to come back to this one at the very end. That's a glorious butterfly. So, welcome to this. So, not only do we have the largest butterfly in the U.S. in the Bay Area, we have the smallest butterfly in the United States. And I'm not sure you can get this stuff into your yard, but this is the pickleweed saltbrush obligate. This is the western pygmy blue. That's the male, and it is 1/4 the size of a dime. Smallest butterfly in the world. Everyone say Presidio exile. That's the pygmy blue, Presidio exile, which is beautiful. Uses Atriplex and Soldacia. Soldacia. Yeah, the endangered one. Oh God, I'm slaughtering. Like you should know his plant. That's it. Sweta. But mainly Atriplex and the tumbleweed, which I think is in the Atriplex, saltbrush bush. She now can show up in vacant lots because of tumbleweed. So this butterfly can show up out of the marsh habitat and can explode. Okay, so welcome to the last group of creatures. Skippers. Those are the ones you don't take on to your 6th and 7th year. Like, no way, Liam. I'm not going to even do the painted ladies. Are you kidding me? Yes, there's actually 3 species right there. And this is the take-home story from skippers. Native bunchgrass. Almost all the skippers host on native bunchgrass. Put native bunchgrass in your yard and you will have a lot of skippers in your yard. one of them has moved over to the non-native grass, like lawn. That's the fiery skipper. So I just want to kind of take you through some of them. These are our 3 most common. This is the common checkered skipper. I've already told you, checker bloom. She's going to use checker bloom. And that's one sitting there. The males and females, they look different. One's dark. This is the female. She's darker. He's a lot whiter. People get a little confused because they have a blue thorax, so you think you're looking at a little blue butterfly. But this is the checker bloom obligate. This is the fiery skipper that's moved. This is the little golden one in lawns. You'll see in any park and stuff. But it's sitting on lupin. And then this is the other one that flies 12 months a year. This is Puanis malini. This is the umber skipper. And this one's easy to learn when you're starting because it's the only chocolate brown one that's sitting in your yard. The other ones are sort of tawny, golden. But this one's chocolate brown. And this one used Disticulus at first, the saltgrass, but now has moved over to Bermuda grass. Smart girl. So this is one of our really, so most of the ones that fly 12 months a year because of the non-native grasses, and they've adapted, but some of them have not. And this is Oikloides sylvanoides, the woodland skipper, which I'm sure has come to your yard, and will only breed in your yard with native grasses. So you can generalize any you want. The more native grasses in your yard, really, for the group of skippers, the better. And that's a take-home that I want you to take away from this. These are woodland skippers. They only fly in the autumn. They only emerge. It has a brief flight, univoltine, 1 flight a year. So welcome to one of my favorite butterflies. This is Sabuleti. This is the sandhill skipper. And this only lays her eggs on Disticulus, on saltgrass. This is a salt obligate butterfly. You find it along the coast. You find it with pygmy blues down in the pickleweed and the saltgrass. And it's got a really, this is one sitting out at Candlestick. I was laying on the ground there. And really fascinating butterfly. Was invited with Jake and a lot of folks from CNPS Yerba Buena to go into the Coast Guard property of Yerba Buena Island, an area that Mike Wood and a lot of plant people were dying to get in there and start cataloging. And I was asked to go along as a Lepidopterist, and I got to swing a net. And this thing landed in front of me, and I thought it looked a little bit different. And it turns out that this is Oikloides agricola. With all the Lepidopterists that have come to San Francisco, I actually added a breeding species to our county, which I'm very proud of. This is with, I went back, I caught this, and again, you know, I'm like, I'm an actor. No, so Dr. Jerry Powell, light brown apple moth fame, I brought him back just to, and boom, there it landed in front of us again. So what that is, and again, Leymus. I can't say it, but I can spell it. That's its host, so that's a native grass, correct? Okay, good. So a lot of our butterflies have gone missing in San Francisco. Not to take you through to too many, but I know we've been going late here, and I do want to give you some updates here. So, mission blues, our only endangered butterfly, won't come to your yard, but no reason you shouldn't be having lupin in your yard. Put any of the lupin, the native lupins, because not only is it the mission blues host, it's the host for tiger moths and a lot of native moths. There's lupin obligates. So lupin is a big one. Any of the lupins, please put in your yards. Mission blues, endangered 1976, small little population at Twin Peaks. We've been driving for 3 years, 40 females and 20 males over from San Bruno in little Tupperware motels because that population is too disjunct. The story I'm telling you of tiger swallowtails taking to the streets, not of all butterflies will do that. Mission blues get to this pristine piece of Twin Peaks and turn around at the sidewalk and come back. And one of the bad things about an isolated population is inbreeding and genetic weakening. So we're bolstering. This butterfly is endangered, so a lot of bureaucracy kicks in. She lays her eggs on lupin. That's the little egg right there out on the landslide there. And then it looks like a deflated ping pong ball. It's sort of a ping pong ball and just been deflated, this flat little thing. Mission blues do a very interesting thing. A Caryorides sits on its host. And it waits for females to come by. So it's a very easy butterfly. I encourage you all on a San Bruno walk to look at the lupin, and you see a blue jumping up, that's going to be a mission blue. Not all butterflies sit on their host. This is the female. This is a pine elfin, a really interesting butterfly in the Bay Area. She only puts her eggs on pine trees, but it's a spectacular butterfly. Interesting that a caterpillar could eat pine needles. That's really intense. This is a dusky wing that uses quercus that was a stray that came into the Presidio. Checkered, wow, I haven't really gone back over this PowerPoint. I'm just going to power you through. So I'm back to our last picture, believe it or not. Chatty Cathy is rounding this up. I led a walk on Earth Day, and this is the take-home story I want you all to have. I led a walk on Earth Day, and there was a guy, Andy, and Andy worked in the Presidio. He's a birder, so I got to throw that in. He's used to going out and looking like we all are. That's his niche passion. And he wanted to learn his butterflies, which is so interesting to me when birders, I'm going to take on my, okay, there's 250 birds, and we have 34 butterflies. I think you can do it. They're very scared to take on their butterflies. So, and Andy took a walk with me on Earth Day in McLaren Park. He learned our common ones along the side stuff. The next day in the Presidio, on his lunch hour with this little camera, he walks down into a place, I forget the name of it, right off of, I forget where the place is. It's near the headquarters, near the old jail. And he just walked down into it, and he took these two pictures, this top dorsal picture and the underside. This is Everus Amenthula, the western-tailed blue. Does a very interesting thing. She uses the native pea, but the caterpillar bores into the dead seed pod and then overwinters for a year. It's a 2-year life cycle. So this is also another thing I want to talk to you guys about. Leave some of the leaf litter. I know we all have our coffee and we get meticulous with our gardens, but that leaf litter below the plants on perennials is equally important to butterflies as the plant itself. Some of them have crawled down and are overwintering in the leaf litter. Just something to consider. A clean garden sometimes is not the best for the creatures. So anyway, Andy shoots these two pictures, and he shoots them, Liam, and he's got his field guide of 900 butterflies, and he's like, I think this is a tailed blue. I'm not sure. Is this a tailed? Yes, Andy, that's the tailed blue. Last seen in San Francisco 145 years ago. And these two pictures are the first pictures ever of the western-tailed blue in San Francisco County. So I really want to leave you guys with that we can bring the lights up here. We can all still add to this story. You get yourself a little camera, your passion, you want to take on your butterflies. We can all still add to this story. Thank you.